This is the Evolution R185CCSX and it is currently the cheapest track saw on Amazon. But is it actually good? Well, today I'm putting that to the test. Hello everyone, Jack here and welcome to the channel. Now most track saws are going to set you back anywhere from £300 to £600. This one is available for just £130. Today I'll be deep diving into all of its features to allow you to make an informed decision as to whether it's worth your money. Let's get started. Now inside the box you're going to find the track saw itself. You're going to find the instructions for using it. You're going to find the track, which comes in 3 parts. Each part is actually 33 centimeters or 1 foot, giving you a total of a 1 meter track. You've got the guide rail. You've also got the dust extraction attachments, which I've already put on the saw, and you've got the multi-material blade. Now to attach that blade is very straightforward. You just go ahead and push down the lever on the back of the track saw to hold that bolt in place. Use the Allen key that is stored on the saw to undo the bolt, pull out the bolt and the washer, slide in your blade, and then obviously tighten those up so it's not going to go anywhere. And there you go, you've got your blade in. To actually set up the tracks, it's a little bit more tricky. You'll notice on the back of the tracks that there are these black guide brackets. You just want to go ahead and grab the smaller Allen key that comes included in the box and untighten the 4 threads on each of the black metal brackets. Once you've done that, they will slide freely, although I did find them to be a little bit too tight, so you might have to get a little bit aggressive with some of them, but then you will be able to move them and tighten them up to actually attach all 3. Once they're tightened, they are nicely secured, and you will probably find that you never undo them again unless storage is really an issue. So yeah, that's everything in the box. So the saw itself does come with a multi-material blade, which means it will cut through both wood and metal. Now, in order to adjust the depth of the cut, you just turn it round and you want to go ahead and flick down this orange lever here. Once you've done that, you will be able to adjust anywhere from 0mm, which it's currently set to, right down to 64mm if you want to cut that deep. Now once you're happy with the depth and what it's set to, you just go ahead and pull back on that orange lever again. So let's say I want it cut to the maximum depth, I'll just go ahead and push down that orange lever, and now that is going to be set to that depth. A similar situation to adjust the bevel, except there are 2 knobs to adjust here. So there's one on the front and one on the back. So you just want to make sure both of these are loose. Once you've loosened both of those off, you're now going to be able to go from a 0 degree bevel right up to 45 degrees. And if I wanted to cut at that angle, I would just lock that in by again turning the knob on the front and turning the one on the back. And now that is locked into 45 degrees. Now, one of the nice features about this is when you're adjusting the bevel is it doesn't go at a negative degree. So if you do want to reset it back to 0, which let's be honest, most people's cuts are going to be, you can just fully turn it back to normal. It's not going to go past 0. Now, everything on this saw is going to be made of aluminium, or if you're American, aluminum. It's got a nice indicator here, so if you are working on a pencil line and you want to know whether where your cut is going to be made, you've got, if it's set to 0 degrees, you know exactly where that's going to be positioned, and if you're set to a 45 degree bevel, then you can move it over slightly, which is nice. And that's if you're going to be using this, which is the guide rail, which I'm going to be using later on in the video when I cut some oak sleepers, so don't miss that. It also comes with a nice safety feature here, which is a built-in blade guard, which is going to automatically push back as you push the saw along, but you've also got this handy little handle here which allows you to manually push it back should you need to. I would say overall the build quality is nice. Like I say, everything is made of aluminium. There is some plastic, like there's a nice soft grip here, handle as you're pushing things along. It is made for right-handed people, so just bear that in mind. Now there is also, as well, as to actually turn the saw on, there is this safety switch that you do need to engage before it allows you to pull the trigger to engage the blade. The blade itself is 185mm. The motor on this is 1600 watts, and overall it does sound like a very promising saw, so very interested to see how this performs when we begin testing later on in the video. Another nice thing I like about this track, and it's subtle, and I don't know whether this was done on purpose, but when you've actually got the track engaged with the saw, there is a little overlap here which allows you to push down on your hand. So if you do not invest in those clamps which secure this down to the board that you're sawing, you do actually have a little area here where you can push down with your hand, which just gives it that additional bit of security and prevents it moving, which is quite nice. Now, one optional extra that you might want to consider if you are buying this track saw is this. This is a 2.8 meter extendable track. So I'll just get this out of the bag. So you can see inside this bag, I have 2 of these. Each one of these are 1.4 meters. You've got 2 in total, and you can attach them together using that same mechanism that come on the smaller tracks to give you 2.8 meters in total. Now, one of the really nice things about this is, firstly, each one of these is actually going to be longer than the 3 separate parts all connected. So you do not have the hassle of connecting them all together. And if you are someone that does need to cut down larger boards, like 4 by 8 foot, then this is going to be perfect. It's going to allow you to cut the entire length of that board. Also with this, which is really nice, something that isn't included with the actual set of the track saw, is these. These are the clamps that actually work with the track that comes with the track saw. And this just gives you a little bit more security if you are making cuts. It's just going to prevent anything moving around, which is nice. You also included get the bag, which, you know, nice. It's always nice to have a bag. This is currently being advertised at $89.99, and I do think if you are someone that is going to be making cuts in longer pieces of timber, this is something that you should very seriously consider. Obviously, it is going to nearly double the price of the actual track saw itself, but I do think it's worth it, and this is something I would definitely recommend if you do invest in this track saw. So now we've unboxed the saw, it's finally time to actually test it out. Now this saw does come with a 1600 watt motor, which in theory means it is going to be able to cut through some pretty hefty chunks of wood. I'm going to be testing it on 3 bits of wood. So here I have some 12mm pine board. After that we'll be moving on to this. This is 45mm construction timber. And the final and ultimate test will be this. This is a 100mm thick oak sleeper that's been in my garden for a while. Obviously the blade on this track saw only goes to 64mm deep. For this cut, I'm going to be making 1 cut on one side, flipping it over, and then making the additional cut on the other side. So without further ado, let's see how this track saw performs. Okay, so starting off with this 15mm piece of pine. Okay, now I'm not using the clamps because they do not actually come with the track saw. I think for the sake of the review, that's important, but obviously if I was just making my everyday cuts, I would encourage you to use the clamps that come with that optional kit. So you can just go ahead and line up the track saw here. Right, and let's make a cut. Okay, I'm pretty impressed with that. That has not chipped off anything. I think the guide rail itself has done a good job of stopping splintering. Go ahead and flip it around and just check the other side. Yeah, the other side looks good as well. I'll grab some close-ups on my camera so you can see this. But yeah, first test, good job on the pine. Right, next up is this 45mm piece of construction timber. Let's see how it does with this. Okay, again, what I'm seeing here is a very clean cut. Now this piece of wood is out of my shed, so it is a bit cobwebby, so don't judge there. But yeah, absolutely. That cut looks really nice. In fact, the splinter guard has done a really nice job there of preventing splintering on the top side. Let's flip it over and just check the other side. Yeah, that looks really nice. I'll go ahead and get some close-ups on my camera so you can see that. Okay, so the final test is going to be this piece of 100mm thick oak. And if you ask me if it can get through this, it can get through anything. It's cut through the last 2 pieces of wood very easily. I would say that motor's coped absolutely fine. And I'm not going to be using the track for this one. I'm just going to be doing all of this with the guide rail, just so I know I get a consistent cut along this edge. Just going to flip it over now and do the other side. I'm really surprised how easily it cut through that oak. I did just want to point out one thing that has happened is the cut has not remained consistent. I don't want anyone thinking that this is a fault of the saw. It's not. This piece of sleeper has been in my garden for well over 3 years weathering, so there's a good chance that neither of these angles were exactly 90 degrees, which means that the guide rail didn't really have a fair chance. Now that is all 3 test cuts made, and I've got to say I'm very impressed with this saw. I was absolutely expecting it to be able to cut this thin piece of pine board nicely, probably this construction timber, but I was not expecting it to get through the oak sleeper as easily as it did. I am pleasantly surprised at the performance of this saw. I've recently tested the Mafel plunge saw, which is one of the most expensive plunge saws you can buy today. And I've got to tell you, if you'd have told me that the Mafel cut these, I probably would have believed you. It's left a very quality cut in all of these. So overall, it's scored very well here. Now, for those that are interested how dust extraction works on this track saw, I've gone ahead and hooked up my Hoover. I'm going to make the exact same cut on this oak sleeper, and I'll do a side-by-side comparison so you can see for yourself how the dust extraction performs. Go ahead and switch on my Hoover. I think that Hoover did help the dust extraction slightly, but I do feel pretty confident that that did not perform as well as the more expensive brands of track saw that you can find on the market. I'll show you the footage side by side and let you decide for yourself. So now I've had a few weeks to actually test out this saw and see what it's all about. There are a few things I really like and a few areas which I feel like it really could be improved. So some of the pros, I really like the precision of the cuts. I really like the fact that it was able to cut through not just thin pieces of timber, but I threw a 100mm thick piece of oak at it and it cut through it absolutely no problem at all. So high points there. I like the ergonomic design and the fact for such a low price you're getting a saw that is made out of aluminium, and it does have nice luxuries on there like the soft grip handle. I like that there's a 3-year warranty, which really does prove that Evolution have a lot of faith in the long-term robustness of this saw. I really like that it comes with a track saw included. I think that's a great shout from Evolution and allows everyone to make the most of this track saw. However, I do think that having that track saw split into 3 separate parts is a little bit silly. I don't think having a track saw length of 33 centimeters is useful to anyone, so you do actually have to connect at least 2 of them together. I imagine that they've done that to save on postage costs and to keep the price down, but it's something that I wanted to point out. Another area which could definitely benefit from improvement is dust extraction. As you could see from the footage earlier, dust extraction on this track saw is not great. If you're someone that relies heavily on that to keep your workshop clean, then this might not be the track saw for you. I will also say that actually fresh out the box, there were some marks on some of the items, so not damage I wouldn't say, but there were a few marks. If you're a perfectionist and you like the tools to look brand new, that's something to watch out for. Not a huge deal breaker, but something I wanted to point out. All in all, I would say this track saw is sturdy, reliable, and for the price, it's an absolute bargain for both DIYers and professionals alike. And if you're in the market for a track saw, it's absolutely worth considering. If you're sat there thinking, this track saw sounds great, I'm going to go buy me one, well, hold your horses there because I'm going to save you some money. If you head over to the Evolution website and type in voucher code Sumeray, you will receive an exclusive 5% off, not just on this track saw, but on every product on the Evolution website. But before you do that, I do recommend that you head over to Amazon because sometimes you can get even more than 5% off. And to save you time, you can go ahead and click the links in the description to check the price out there first. Thanks for joining me for this review. If you found this video useful, then please go ahead and smash the like button, subscribe so you never miss a future video, and if you're interested in seeing how the most expensive track saw works, then click this video next. Until next time, happy building.